In this tutorial, we'll look at rigging a simple biped character. So I make sure I've got my rigging shelf open. I'm going to go into my rigging drop-down menu as well, so I've got some custom menus up here. And we'll have a look. This is the stand character. I'll just press 5 to see what he looks like with materials shaded. So we'll start building the skeleton in the side view. So I'll go to the create joint tool, and I'm going to start from the top of his thigh, click release to the knee. Hold shift down just to draw this in a dead straight line. It draws, if you hold shift down when you're drawing joints, it draws them at 90-degree angles. Then go back to this view. We can see that if I pull this through here, look, the joints are invisible through the shaded view. So if you click on this little icon here, it makes the joints, it x-rays the joints so you can see them through meshes and stuff like that. So I've just moved that into the position of his leg. The other thing I'm going to turn on is just the wireframe on shaded, just so I can see where the edges are, so I make sure that the joints coincide with edge loops and so on. Go back to the side view. Let's draw his spine. I'm going to keep this really nice and simple. He's quite straight, so I'm going to hold the shift key down whilst I do this. Holding the shift key down when you're drawing joint chains, it does obviously make them in a dead straight line like this, but it also makes sure that the orientation of the joints is fairly neat. So, I mean, you're not always be able to do that. It really does depend on your character, but in this case, Stan is quite fortunate in that he's nice and straight. So we'll go to the top view to draw the arms. And I'll start at his shoulder joint. I'm not holding the shift key down for this. And I'm going to stop at his wrist like that and press enter, like so. If I go to this view, you can see it's drawn it flat to the plane, so it's on the floor. So we need to move that up into his arm. Just press the F key to frame that. That's all good. So we can parent some of these together. So I'm going to parent the shoulder joint to the chest joint. Press P, and then I'm going to pick the thigh joint. Hold shift down to pick the waist joint, and press P again. So this is quite important. You want this to be the topmost node in your skeleton hierarchy, so that when I move this around or rotate it, all the other joints follow. If it doesn't behave like that, it's going to be problematic to animate. We can mirror the leg across. We won't mirror the arm across yet because we'll do the fingers, but we can mirror the leg across now. So we'll go to skeleton, mirror joints, go to the options. We need to just make sure we've got the correct plane. He's on the YZ, is the center plane. That's all done, so I'll go apply, and that's mirrored it across like so. That's all good. So we'll draw the fingers now. So I'll go to the front view, zoom in on the hand. I'll draw one joint chain roughly here, here, and here. You can see the joints are quite large, so I can reduce the size of those in display, animation, and joint size here. I can make them bigger and smaller in here, so I'll just adjust them down a little bit, like so. And then I'll go back to my perspective view and make sure this is in the right place. So I'll move this about, and I'll rotate it slightly. And you just spend a long time getting these all in the right place, and I scale this a little bit like so, and that's kind of fine. I think that's absolutely fine. So I'll make a duplicate of that now. So I'm going to go Control D, so D for Delta, and I'm going to move this over here like so. And when I copied those, I just selected the topmost joint, and it will copy all the joints below in the hierarchy as well. Let's just get this in the right place. Again, I'm just going to scale it here. So that's me just I keep accidentally pressing my Windows key. I should disable that. So let's just get that in the right position. Yeah, that's fine. Doesn't matter if the joints actually look. I just want that on that edge there a bit more. Doesn't matter if the joints stick out a little bit like that. They don't render. So we'll copy this one again. Control D for the little finger, and we'll move this over here. Rotate it around and scale it down a little bit. By scaling it, you can move all the joints about, but by scaling it, it just keeps them sort of along their axis like that. If you start moving them about, you can again, you can upset the local pivots of these. These have all got little pivots, so it determines which way the joints rotate, like so. And you can alter those, but we'll leave them alone for now unless we come across any problems. We go to the top view to draw the thumb, because the thumb sort of folds across the fingers, so it's better to draw in this view. Now, because we're drawing in this view, we'll have to move it up into the skeleton because it will be on the floor when we go back to this view. I can just find it. There it is. Let's press F to zoom in on it, and let's get this in the right position. And rotate it down a bit. And it's too high at the moment. So like I said, just spend a bit of time getting this all working kind of in the right place. I think that's okay. Once you're happy with those, check the rotations. At the moment the thumb can rotate like this, it can rotate like that, so it will be okay. It will kind of, the orientation of the joints will be nice for animating. I'm then going to parent all of these to the wrist joint, so I'm going to pick that one, hold shift down, pick that one, and that one, and pick the parent joint last, not the mesh, the parent joint, that one, and press P. At this stage, actually just highlighted a problem here where I accidentally picked the mesh. I'm going to put the mesh on a display layer so I don't accidentally keep picking it when I'm working on the rig. So that over here, I'm just going to create a new display layer, and I'm going to change it to R. And if I double click on it, I'll just call this stand model, like so. So I just know that that's the model there. Like, you can change the visibility and stuff like that. But I've changed it to R, which is reference. I can see it, but I can't pick it now. Right, the hand is good, so we'll mirror that across now. So pick the shoulder joint where you want to mirror it from. You do not pick this joint because otherwise you end up with a duplicate of the chest, neck and head joint. So let's just mirror that across. The skeleton, mirror joints, it should be the same axis and everything, that's all good. And so we've got our basic skeleton drawn then. At this point, it's a good idea sometimes to name it so we can go along all the joints and we can go in here and go right. Oh no, this is left thigh, isn't it? So left thigh, and so on. We can go, if I can even spell it right, but we can go along here and we can name all the joints over in the channel box. There is a joint labeling tool as well in skeleton. In here, there's a joint labeling tool. You can add joint labels. They're separate from the node names, so you can add the joint labels, and then you can actually label the nodes from the joint labels. So it's a little bit complicated, but I find with a simple skeleton like this, just name them yourself. Right, the next thing we do, we're set up the IK. So at the moment, if we started to animate Stan, we'll see, you know, here move along like so, and his legs will move with him. We want to be able to pin the legs to the floor so we're not sort of counter animating them against everything the body does. So it's more like a stop motion puppet. So we'll add some IK to the legs. So let's have a look. Actually, we'll do this in the perspective view. We'll zoom in a bit. Next to the create joint tool is the create IK handle tool. So we'll click on that, and let's just zoom in a little bit more so we can see this clearly. I'm going to click on the top of the thigh joint and then the heel of the foot, like so. And that's drawn in the IK chain from there to there. You can see the joints have gone purple. It means they've got some kind of relationship with the IK handle. It's a constraint. And that IK handle that I've got selected can now move that about. But you can see the foot is actually rotating through that. So if we were animating this, we'd be sort of moving this, and then we'd have to pick that bone and animate that. And again, we'd be counter animating the rotation of the foot to everything the IK does. So we'd end up with a lot of keys to try and correct the rotation of the foot. So we want to constrain the foot as well. And this is just a simple way of solving this. We'll create another IK chain. So we'll click on that again from here to here. And you can see there's the IK handle there and an IK handle there. And we want to parent that one to that one. So that one will follow everywhere that one goes. And then we'll be able to rotate that IK handle, and it will rotate that one around below it. So it means we can just pick one thing to animate. If we have a look at our hypergraph, so we go into Windows, General Editors, and Hypergraph Hierarchy. We have a look in here. You can see what it's done. Here's our skeleton hierarchy, and then down here is the IK, and these are the two handles it's created. So I'm going to parent these two together. I can do it in this view by picking the child object and the parent, pressing P, or I can just press the mouse wheel, the middle mouse button, and drag that onto that like so. So now if I select this and I move it, you can see the foot stays flat, and if I then rotate it, I've got the control of the rotation just with that one IK handle. So I'm only able to pick one thing to control the pose of the foot. So that's good for now. IK doesn't become active until you key it. So if I move his body around at the moment, nothing will happen. But you can see the foot still moves about. As soon as I key that, it will work, or if I parent it to a controller. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create the IK for the other side, and then I'm going to create some controllers to control the IK. So I'm doing an IK from there to there and there to there, and then parent them together like so. Okay, now I'll create a controller. I'm going to hide this away, and I'm going to go to my curved surfaces shelf. I'm going to create a circle. It's just a nerve circle, and I'm going to go into component mode, I'm just going to press the F8 key, and I'm going to just make this into a kind of controller shape. So just something nice and simple that's easy to select. And we move it to where the foot is. And make sure it's nice and big so you can see it, and it's easy to select. So I'll make it a little bit bigger so I can, like I said, see it. Press F8 again to go into component mode. Or you can right click on it and select component mode. And I'm just going to pull these ones up a little bit so I can see it in like the side views as well. So it just gives it a little bit of 3D. If you're working with a floor plane as well, it just means it will be visible above the floor plane. I also make sure that it doesn't go over this center line because we're going to have another one for this one, so I don't want them sort of crossing over, so I end up selecting the wrong thing most of the time. The other thing we want to make sure is that the pivot is at the pivot of the joint here. So I'm going to press the insert key, or you can hold the D key down. It's up to you. But insert key toggles into pivot mode. I'm going to hold the V key down, which is vertex and pivot snap, and I'm going to drag this around until it snaps to the center of that bone, like so. I'm happy with that, so I'll press insert key to go back into ordinate transform mode. I'm then going to delete the history and the transforms of this object. So I'm going to go back to my poly modeling shelf. I'm going to click on this one and the snowflake icon here, and that just zeroes and sets the scale back to 1 for that object. Okay, I'm then going to add an attribute to this that's going to control the rotation of these toes. Okay, so I'm going to select this, I'm going to go modify, add attribute, and I'm going to call it toes, and I'm going to call it the values I'm going to put in a -50 to 50, and I'm going to go add. And we can see that this added this toes attribute, this toes channel over here, which has a value which will go from -50 to 50. And this relates to the Z rotation on this joint here. It's going to end up controlling the Z rotation on this joint here. So that here's 50 roughly, and here's -50. I won't always want to pose it like that, but it gives me the freedom to sort of move it about and do what I like with it. Next thing I'll do is I'm going to mirror this across, not mirror it, so I just copy it across so I've got a duplicate. So I added that channel before I parented things, so I can just quickly copy this and not have loads of stuff attached to it and so on. So Control D, like so, and I'll move it over here. And if I type in, look, I'm on the x-axis at crossways. If I type in -1, it turns it inside out. Okay, and then I can snap this, hold the V key down, snap this to that joint. There we go, just double check it's not snapped to a vertex. And then again, like we did before, I'm going to freeze its transforms. That gets rid of that minus value and a little bit of movement. It just means that this is all zeroed, so if we ever want to get our character back to its default pose, we can just zero all of these, like so. Now we can start parenting things together. So like, I'm going to pick that IK handle there, and pick this, and press P. And for the other side, do the same. I'm going to pick that IK handle there. So it's the one that's at the heel of the foot. This one highlights because it's a child of it, but it's this one we're actually selecting. Okay, hold shift down and pick that NURB circle and press P. We'll have a look in the hypergraph what this looks like. So Windows, I'll put a shortcut on my rigging shelf. Look, there's a shortcut. If you hold Control Shift down, when you click on an icon in a menu, it will put a shortcut on your selected shelf. So if I click on that, this is what it should look like. So we've got NURB circle 1 and NURB circle 2 with the relevant IK handles below it. So now look, if we pick that circle, this foot moves to it, like so. And if we move his hips around now, we'll see that the IK is now active, so the feet are pinned to the floor. What I'll do at this point is I will skin Stan to it so we can actually see Stan moving to it. I won't muck about with the paint weights or anything, so let's just quickly do that. So I'll just turn off the reference mode here. I'll pick Stan, I'll make sure he's got no construction history. No construction history, he's all frozen and stuff, so he's a nice clean model. I'll then pick the topmost node of the skeleton hierarchy, so that one there, that waist joint, okay? And then I'll go skin, bind skin options, and I want this set. Let's just reset these settings, and I'm going to go to the joint hierarchy. I'm going to set the maximum influences to 3 and the drop-off rate to 10. I'm going to apply that, and it just means that now Stan, he's just got default weighting. It won't be brilliant, but he follows everything around like so. So he's weighted to that. There'll be some paint weights we need to do. I think I always find with Stan, look, his chin is weighted to the neck joint, so we'd want to fix that at some point. But that means that now we can sort of look at and see more clearly what the rig's doing. So look, we can see we can move that, we can rotate that. So you can flicking out at that moment. We're going to fix that in a bit by putting what's called a pole vector constraint, which will control the orientation of the knee, like so. So when we do stuff like that, that won't happen. Right, the next thing we want to do is use the connection editor to connect that toes channel to that little end joint there, that toes joint. So we're going to Windows and General Editors and the connection editor here. We'll bring this up like so. And we need to load the output and the input. So we need the output, which is the toes channel. So we'll reload left here. And then we need that little end joint. So make sure you pick the joint. You can see I've accidentally picked the IK handle. It's got to go green. So if you struggle with that, use the hypergraph. So look, I've definitely got that selected. You can check over here, look, joint 4, and I'll reload right. Now at the moment we can see there's a heck of a lot of clutter in these screens. So we go left display, just show non-keyable, only show the things that can be keyframed, and do the same, and suddenly there's a lot less clutter. So look, we want to link toes to the rotate Z. And look, they turn to italics and it means they're connected now. So if I pick this now and I click on toes and I just press my mouse wheel and drag left and right, it's changing the value of the toes channel. So again, it means that we can animate just this controller here. We can be setting keyframes to this, so we can pose it like this, we can pose it like this, and then we can go over here and we can pose that like that. And we can then just press S to key it. It means we're just selecting one thing to key. It's limited, you know, there are much more advanced foot rigs out there, but it's nice and easy to get going with, and you can do good animation with it. So we want to do the other side now. So look, you can leave this open. We pick this, but then we have to click reload left, so we're loading nerve circle 2, and carefully pick that joint. Yeah, I got it, and reload right. Okay, and we click on toes and rotate Z, and then we can close that window down. And they should be working for both now. So if we click on toes there, that's working. Double check it all works correctly. If ever you want to delete it, find the thing that's been controlled. Look, and you can see it's got this little yellow tick here. If you then right click and just go down to break connection, that will just remove that connection between the twos, and you can start again, kind of thing. So that's all good for now. The last thing we want to do with our feet controllers is do a pole vector constraint. That's like a knee aim, and that's something that we won't be animating a heck of a lot. It's usually to fix problems, or if there's a little bit of like a twist in the knee that you want to put in, like if someone's like knees are buckling when they've been hit or something, it allows you to do that and have control over them, because the knees normally point along the foot like so when you've got a foot controller on it. When the IK's not got a foot controller, the knees will just always point forward, and you have to use the twist or the pole vector to control it. That probably made no sense whatsoever, but I'll show you what we're going to do. So I'm going to create another circle, and this will just be our controller for the knees. Let's just press F to frame it, and then I'm going to go into component mode. I'm going to pick all of those outer ones. You can make any shape you like. I'm just making a sort of star shape so I can pick it and recognize what it looks like. I'm going to revolve it around this way, 90 degrees. I'll just type in 90 there. And then I'm going to snap it to the knee. So I'm going to hold the V key down. I'm going to drag it over here onto that knee. Press F to zoom in on it. That's good. I'll make a duplicate of it. Control D. Snap it to the other knee, like so. I think they're both in the right place, and I will then drag them forward. They need to be a little way in front like this, so that's what the knees will be aiming at, and it will stop them flipping out and doing weird things when the ankle is rotated and stuff like that. We want to then delete their history and freeze their transformations. See, they've got these numbers in here where we've moved them out. Let's freeze those transformations and set them back to 0. And then we want to set up our pole vector constraints. To do this, you pick the constraining object first, and then we need to pick the actual IK handle, because the IK handle, if I pick this on its own, look, it's got the pole vector X, Y, Z. It's also got what's called a twist control, and the pole vector and the twist controls kind of do the same thing, but they could control the knee. The pole vector is kind of an X, Y, Z plotting thing that the knee aims at, so we'll use that to constrain it. So we'll pick that, and then hold shift down and pick the IK handle very carefully. You can do this in the hypergraph if you prefer. And then we need to be in the rigging menu, and you go constrain and pole vector. And you see it draws a line up there. We'll do the other one. And let's just zoom in so we make sure we pick the right IK. Yep, I think that's the right one. And we go constrain and pole vector. Okay, and that means now that if we move this about now, we'll see the knee will try to, look, it's trying to aim at that. Okay. And because this is kind of a secondary animation thing, for this simple rig, I'm going to now parent this to the foot controller, like that, and that one to the other foot controller. Ooh, let me pick that again. Ooh, I've accidentally pressed caps lock. Not a good idea. Right. So now when we move this foot controller around, you can see that IK stays with it. Okay, so that will go everywhere the foot goes, because normally if you're moving your foot around, your knee will always point in the same direction as your foot. But we've got that secondary animation controller, like if we wanted to do more of this kind of pose, it's there to do it. And also if things go horribly wrong, like you're doing some weird pose, and I'll try and demonstrate, but if this suddenly does this, if it goes around the back, if suddenly you wanted to pose the leg like that, you can then animate this against it, so you can still get that pose, and you can quickly animate that background there to stop the knee flipping out like it just did. It should be pretty stable now. So that's the basics of setting up the feet. The last thing we do just in this tutorial is we'll hide away all the bits of the leg rig or construction that we don't want to accidentally select when we're animating. So we're going to pick, let's have a look, we want to pick that IK there and that IK handle there, and we only need to pick the topmost things in the chain, that bone there and that bone there. Okay, I've managed to deselect everything. Let me just try and pick those again. That one there, that one there, that one there, and that one there. Got it. And we'll add those to a display layer, and I'll just call this, I call it leg bits. Anything you like, as long as you kind of understand what it means. And it just means that we can now change this to T to template. And it means that when we're animating this, if I change stand model back to R, if I drag a selection box around this, the only thing I'm going to select is the thing I want to animate and key. And you have to be very careful when you start building rigs. If accidentally, say for example, I pick this and I keyed this, you'll then see that your foot rig is then offset from that. Okay, so it will start to cause problems when you're animating. So hide those things away, make them so they're unselectable, and you'll find you'll get on a lot better when you're posing your character.